Hello everyone, I'm day weather meteorologist Don Day with your Public Lands Council weekly weather update for this October 23rd, 2021. It's being brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors. Go to agriskadvisors.com. Also brought to you by WSR Insurance Services Incorporated. Well folks, we've got some really good news for some of you. We had talked in last week's video about how the end of October was looking wet for California in the far west, and boy, that's really developing. We've got big rain and mountain snow for California, Washington, Oregon, parts of the interior west, in some areas along the west coast, into the Central Valley of California, into the Sierra Nevada, and even east of the Cascades. The best rain we've seen in a while, and there could be not just some snow in the mountains of the Pacific Northwest and California, but feet of snow before the next 5 to 7 days is over. Now, less precipitation will fall east of the Continental Divide. This is mainly a situation where areas along and west of the divide get the better rain and snow. East of the divide and for the southwest, Arizona, New Mexico, you're going to be drier in this pattern. The snowpack season is off to an earlier start this year than last year, and that's something that we'll talk about in next week's video, because actually we're starting to see the snow falling in those higher mountain areas and starting to accumulate and stay, and that's certainly better than what we had a year ago. The long-range trends are encouraging as we get into November, that we will see in some parts of the western United States in the month of November some other opportunities for more rain, especially along the west coast. The last 7 days have been fairly productive for some of you. For the second week in a row, we've seen some stormy weather move from the Pacific Northwest to the Central Rockies and into parts of the northern plains. So this area here for the second week in a row has gotten some good moisture, and this has helped out, and we've actually seen some modest improvement in drought conditions. And these same areas, especially here, and maybe even a little bit further out to the east, will be getting good precipitation over this next coming week. The precipitation anomaly, where you see the green, means that precipitation for the 7-day period has been above what normally would fall. The brown means below average, the white means average. When we take a look at what's coming, this is a weather chart that shows the troughs and the high pressures and the low pressure systems by Monday afternoon. And you can see there's a strong system sliding into California, into Washington and Oregon. We've got a lot of cold air up in the Gulf of Alaska and off the west coast of British Columbia. And that's going to continue to feed strong jet stream winds into the region, into the western United States, and make the western areas wet. Now, these systems are going to move off the west coast and eastward, but as they move eastward, they kind of lose some of their definition, because the mountain ranges of the west kind of chew up these storms, take a lot of the rain and snow out of them. These storms are being driven by very powerful jet stream winds. This is a map representing the jet stream winds at 30,000 feet. Think of this about a little bit lower than you would fly a commercial jet. These are winds that are almost 200 miles an hour or even more than 200 miles an hour slamming into the west coast. And that's just going to make the far west get some rain, the best rain in months for some of you. When you look at the forecast over the next 7 days, you can see some of the high Sierras could have in excess of 7 inches of water equivalent. Now, that'll be both in the form of rain and snow. But where you see these red and orange areas, you're talking 1 to 2 to 3 inches or more of water, and even along the shadow of the Cascades into Idaho, northwestern Wyoming and southwest Montana, into parts of British Columbia, and northern parts of the Great Basin along and north of I-80 here. Here's another area that could really use the water. So this is going to be a very productive next 7 to 10 days. You probably will notice the rainfall amounts and the snow amounts do drop off along and east of the Continental Divide. And that's typical in this type of weather pattern. But the more stormy you get out here during the course of the following winter season, that does end up helping areas along and east of the divide later on. It is going to be drier for you folks down in this area here in this type of pattern. Now, as we look at the snowfall forecast, pretty good. We talked about the Sierras getting a lot. You see that 48 there? That means that the potential to up to 3 to 4 feet of snow could fall in the highest Sierra over the next 7 days. So that is a really good start to the snowpack season. You can see the higher Rockies here of Canada, Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho and other western states starting to see that snow base get built up a little bit. Now let's talk about the drought change in the last week. We talked about some modest improvements in drought conditions. The Dakotas and parts of northeastern Wyoming, parts of far western Wyoming, and parts of the Nebraska Panhandle, that green there means that drought conditions have actually improved, not gotten worse. The gray areas represent where there hasn't been much in the way of change. As we take a look further west, you can see that along the Wasatch Front, there's been some improvement. Southeastern Montana, there's been improvement. There's been a step backwards here in northwest Montana. However, the next week, we should be able to show improvements in this map. In this area here, there might be a larger area of green showing up in this area. Drought improvement, something that hasn't happened in a long time, may be on next week's maps or maybe the week after that. So, somewhat encouraging to finally talk about some western precipitation. Out to 10 days, this is actually for Halloween Sunday. We still see active weather with low pressure off the west coast and more up here in the Gulf of Alaska. So as we get into the month of November, the western United States will still have these systems coming through, and also some opportunities for some colder air to come into the western United States as well. The new 30-day outlook, this takes us through November 22nd. Anywhere you see blue, that means below average temperatures. White means average. The yellow, orange colors mean above average. What this is showing, the long-range model sees that the stormy weather in the west will continue. That's why the temperatures are below average and getting into the Rockies here. The further out east you get in the Midwest, it won't be as cold, at least through the third week in November. We are watching out for the end of November to early parts of December, maybe being a lot colder for some of you. Precipitation-wise, this is why it's so encouraging. We're continuing to see those strong, energetic, and moist jet stream winds bring more storms to the Pacific Northwest, even east of the Cascades and into central and northern California, and maybe even southern California here in the coming weeks ahead. So our summary through our next update, which will be on the 30th, rain and snow for the far west, the best we've seen in a long, long time. No real significant cold yet. I don't see a big blast of the Arctic making a visit to the west, at least for another week to 10 days. And the long-range trends continue to be somewhat encouraging for more precipitation this fall. Our next update will be Saturday the 30th. Have yourself a great week ahead. Thanks for listening.